Is Jen Bosworth. Jen Bosworth is a writer and performer from Evanston. Her one-woman show, Why Not Me, is on tour and will make its East Coast premiere at the New York City, what festival is it? Fringe Festival in August. She is pleased as punch to be a part of Anthony's senior studies project and can't believe that I wasn't born with her as a graduate from ETHS. Please welcome Jen Bosworth. Woo!
Questions and stuff, and I said, yeah, I went to ETHS and I graduated in '93, and he said, oh, I wasn't born. And I was like, I'm going to go kill myself. Not really. Not really. There's high school students. There's usually, my performing is not PG, it's usually R, but I'm going to change it a little. There's a very small child. Okay. I'm from Evanston. And I said, I'm going to get the hell out of here as soon as I graduate. And I didn't. I went to DePaul. I went to the theater school at DePaul. And then I moved to LA for 7 years where I worked for a movie star. I worked for Nicolas Cage. And it was crazy. And I ruined my 20s there. I thought I'd never come home. And a series of events happened. And I came back to Evanston. And sometimes you just need to come home. You just do. I think it's important. And I also want to give it up to Anthony because doing this kind of work builds community. It takes courage to be a storyteller. There's all kinds of, so let's give it up for Anthony. The last thing I was thinking about was building community, so this is an amazing thing. When people think of Evanston, they tend to think of beautiful tree-lined streets, Subaru Outbacks, and big lakeside mansions. But there is an underbelly to Evanston. There is a different side of this suburb, and I lived out my youth on that side. I grew up in Evanston on Dewey Street in the 70s and 80s. I saw my first gun at age 5. One of our neighbors, Mr. Carter, loaned it to my dad after we were robbed for the second time. There were drug parties across the street from our house. And one time I saw our mailman, Mr. Wilson, peeing in our front yard. Right in the snow. My mom told us he was just drunk and to move along. I had Jamaican babysitters. They cornrowed my hair and put beads on the ends. And my kindergarten teacher, Mrs. Washington, looked at me as if I were a space alien. There I was, wearing pleated brown corduroys, an ironed white button-down shirt, and had cornrows and beads adorning my little head. My first French kiss was with Roger, the neighborhood boy, when I was 8. A bit young, I know, but that's how we rolled on Dewey Street. Rod ended up going to prison for manslaughter at age 18. We all played Truth or Dare in the unfinished basement of a girl named Tanya. Nothing like a rat running by to kill the mood of a good game of Truth or Dare. One time, when I was 10 and my sister was 11, she was being picked on by some bigger neighborhood girls. And by bigger, I mean like 200 pounds bigger. And I picked up a stray brick and hurled it at one of the girls' heads. But because I was 10, the brick landed about a foot in front of me. And then my sister and I got our asses kicked. We were kicked and punched really hard by those mammoth girls. But the point is that I was a badass among a neighborhood of bigger badasses. My best friend was Odette. She lived across the street and we did everything together. One of our favorite things to do was bother her drunk father. And by bother, I mean steal money from him while he was passed out. We would pick his pocket and run to Mr. Holly's candy store. We would buy endless amounts of Now and Laters and Lick-O-Mades and Lemon Heads, and by the time I was 12, I had 15 cavities. We did fun things like go to abandoned lots in our hood and smoke the weeds that were growing there. But oh, I just realized that sounds like pot. It was not pot. It was a banana plant. Anyway, but our most memorable time was the time when we broke into the cat lady's house. Everyone has a cat lady in their neighborhood, and our cat lady lived on the corner, and her bushes were overgrown, and many of her windows were broken. No one we knew had actually seen the cat lady, and so Odette and I decided it would be a good idea to break into her house and see what we could see. We snuck in through a broken basement window. We were dressed in all black and equipped with flashlights. We were going in A-Team style. Oh, and we had Odette's father's Jamaican machete. So there we were, standing in a cat lady's basement, and we waved the flashlight around to see what we could see, and there were no cats. What there were, however, were about 1,000 doll heads. They were all over the place, no bodies, just heads. Heads on chairs, heads on tables, heads on the cement floor, white doll heads and black doll heads. This lady didn't discriminate. Some were huge and some were itty-bitty. Some of their eyes were open, some closed, and all were scary as all get out. We both screamed, and I'm pretty sure I wet my pants a little. Out of fright, Odette swung the machete and it bonked me in the head. I passed out from the blow. After a little while, I came to on the ground, and I was disoriented, and my head was throbbing, and I looked up, and all I saw were those goddamn doll heads all around me, and then I screamed some more. Odette was crying. Our bloodhound gang antics had gone a little too far. Odette pulled me up, and we made a break for the window. Just then, we heard a loud noise. We turned around. It was not the cat lady. It was the police. A neighbor had heard our screams and called the police, and they had flashlights, but instead of machetes, they had guns, drawn guns. They shined their flashlight on us. I was scared shitless, plus I had a concussion, but I did the talking anyway. It was in my nature. In my house, you had to make stuff up quick. Like if my mom asked me where I was and why I wasn't home when the streetlights came on, I pretty much had to come up with a good one. Oh, where have I been? That's really easy, I would say. You know, that man down the block with no legs, he needed help cutting his lawn. It's really hard for him to push that mower in his wheelchair. Shit like that. Don't shoot us, I yelled, please. I put my hands in the air. I had seen Odette's brother Fred get arrested so many times that I knew that that's what we were supposed to do. It took the officers a second to realize that we were children. They put their guns away. What the hell is this? The fat police officer said. I said, come on, I told myself, come on. We're, investigating. See, what had happened was our dolls began to go missing, and we got a tip that the cat lady, Mrs. Anyway, we got a tip that our dolls were in her house, and so we felt it only right to follow all possible leads. Now, I watched a lot of crime TV as a kid. I watched America's Most Wanted, reruns of Columbo, Cagney and Lacey. You guys are all too young to know that, some of you aren't. In fact, I watched so many crime shows that my parents began to call me Quincy. See, officers, I pointed to the doll head. See, she clearly is the doll culprit. I had no idea what culprit meant. I just heard it on TV. Okay, the skinny cop said, but what the hell? Why did you tell your parents and let them take care of that? Oh, that's easy, I said. Her dad's a drunk, and my parents are never home. The police officers looked at each other to say, why did we come to work today? But now, I said, now we've collected all of the evidence we need, and we'll just be on our way now. I was kind of beginning to enjoy this. I grabbed Odette's hand, and we walked towards the open window. Wait just a minute, the fat one said. What the hell is that? He shined his flashlight on the machete, which was lying on the ground. Oh, that? I said as if it were perfectly normal to see a machete in a basement filled with doll heads. I don't know, I said, but my hunch is that she used that machete to chop off all the doll heads, I said. But that's just a hunch. I'm not a professional. I'll leave that up to you two. There was a long silence. Would we be arrested? Would we go to juvie like all the other neighborhood kids? Would this be the beginning of a life of crime? The cops looked at us. Get out of here and never come back. Ever. Not a problem, I said. We have collected all of our evidence. Yes, we know, he said. You have all the evidence. Now get out. Odette and I climbed out of the window and ran like hell back to her house. Eventually, Odette's father noticed his Jamaican machete was missing. Luckily, he blamed Odette's drug addict brother Fred, Fred was always pawning things. We were saved, but Fred was beaten silly. I don't live in that part of Evanston anymore, and Odette doesn't either. She moved to North Carolina and is now a toxicologist. But I still live in Evanston. And every now and then I drive down Dewey Street and stop in front of where the cat lady's house used to be. It's a vacant lot now. I stop my car and wonder if maybe there's still some evidence there, some trace of my childhood, of my wild youth spent in South Evanston. But then I remember that the Law and Order Marathon is about to start, and I hightail it back to my part of town without looking back.